in one of our phone calls, you said something to the effect, remind me what you said, which was that it's hard knowing that there's so much evil in the world. Do you remember telling me that? It must have been 3-4 years ago. I remember saying you
Yes,
said that.
because you were in a bad situation. You were facing a lot of...
Was it the FBI?
Wasn't just that, it was when you were in the courtroom. Remember when you were in the
Oh
courtroom?
yes, oh yes, the Bob Creamer trial. I was trying to determine whether I should give a talk after I was raided. And there was the very end of the speech, which I was writing furiously, and I had you on the phone, and I asked you to help me with what I was saying. It's hard knowing there's so much evil in the world. It's hard for me to witness that evil. And recently you had the young woman on your podcast. What was her name? Talking about child
Becca
trafficking.
Spinks, she's amazing.
I
Yeah.
mean, are the American people capable of processing child trafficking and knowing about it without feeling shame?
Okay, so first of all, I would say deciding what people are capable of and not capable of is not up to us, right? That's the kind of thing that I would hear all along the way at 60 Minutes and NBC, ABC, everywhere, is what people were capable of and what can they handle. And I never believed that was our decision, number one. Number two, I would meet people, like a lady I met in New York who was working in a hotel overnight in the restroom, and she recognized me from 60 Minutes. I find that people surprise you constantly. I learned from my old boss at 60 Minutes. He said to us once in a screening, never underestimate the audience. And I feel the same way about people. I think people can handle anything. Now, there are some people who choose not to face the truth, but by and large, people can pretty much handle anything.
I'm basing that off of this film that we did, Line in the Sand, and there's this one scene in the desert of a little girl, and it's a nonfiction film, so it's a documentary film. Whereas Sound of Freedom, incredible film, but it was actresses. And there's one moment in that film, and I just want you to play it here.
Breaking right here. ¿Vienes sola, verdad? Ahí viene tu mami y tu papá.
No, mi papá está en el cielo.
¿Tu papi está en el cielo? ¿Y tu mami?
Ah, ya sé.
¿Con quién viniste, mija?
Mira, sola.
¿Viniste sola? ¿Cuántos años tienes?
10
¿10 años? ¿De dónde vienes?
de Honduras.
¿De Honduras? ¿Cuánto tiempo llevas viajando, mi reina?
So,
5 días?
there the unaccompanied minors are right behind me. ¿Cuántos años tiene?
Yo tengo
12?
14.
14. ¿Cuántos años tiene? 15, 14, 15 y 17. 17. ¿De dónde? México? Guatemala? Guatemala. From places like... And I think a lot of people couldn't really handle that. It was just, I mean, I was shocked because I agree with you. Like, this goes back to the whole, in like the 30s or 40s, the journalism deans were talking about they need information fed to them. People are not, we don't want to give them raw information.
They're not capable of this. They're not capable of that.
Yeah. And I understand your point because you worked at 60 Minutes and I want to ask you about how journalism has changed, but I found that my audience couldn't handle that scene. They were overwhelmed. I don't know, have you ever seen that in your career? Because I almost felt, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was shame. They're not doing enough. They just couldn't process that.
It's interesting.
And I don't know, because that's very interesting to me because I want to give them raw data, but I don't know if the American people are capable of handling the truth. And maybe this is how I've evolved. I don't know what you think about that.
I just think it's our job to tell it. And then I don't worry about what people can handle and not handle. You know what I mean? It's like I don't get that involved in the process. My purpose is to figure it out and to do as best that I can to communicate that in a way that people truly understand it. You don't want to show something and then it be misleading. But, maybe, James, I wonder if part of the reason that your audience struggled with that is that they don't want to... What you captured in your film and in your reporting is the reality, right? That on the one hand, you have this real issue of national security and law and order with the border, and you have then on the other hand a complete and utter abuse of the open borders for very nefarious reasons, by political entities and forces. But then you also have the reality of that little girl. And so it's hard. Sometimes people want it, just the simple answer is just get rid of everybody, and they want to cut themselves off emotionally from that. Because the reality is they turned human beings, little children, into weapon systems. And when you go onto a battlefield and you have to remove all the landmines that are left over from the battle, they don't have feelings. They don't have faces and families.
And
you don't have to worry about tearing that mine apart. But here, you're presenting that uncomfortable truth about the fact that there is a human cost.
So just this scene, I mean, it was emotionally overwhelming. I mean, people were like, they audibly gasped, and I didn't even show the worst stuff. But obviously the girl's been drugged, and things happened to her. And, you know, I've been an optimist my whole career. I've been like all about it. You met me 4 or 5 years ago in New York in our office at Project Veritas, and I was preaching the gospel that you're preaching, and having seen a little bit of this, I kind of got black-pilled a little bit. And you were going to tell me like what's the most evil thing you've seen and how you reckon with evil.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about evil, I mean, there is so much around us right now. I mean, I just interviewed a guy who described, he rescues kids. He described coming into a house and finding just bodies, dead babies everywhere. And what they do with these babies is that from the time they're born, they don't give them milk or their mother's breast to suckle on. They give them their genitals, a man's genitals, and so they starve them. So these babies suck harder and harder because they're starving to death.
Where is this?
And then they drown them. This was in the United States. They do it all over the world.
When?
I interviewed another woman from El Salvador years ago. She told me about this in El Salvador. And so these babies starve and then they drown in semen.
What happens to the men who do this to the babies?
They're all over the place getting rich off the internet or fulfilling all their worst fantasies on the dark web.
And they're still free, and
most of them.
And why is that?
Because we don't do anything about it.
What is your price? Because if your price is not your life, then you are for sale.